Hey guys, welcome to the second part of string play. Uh, so we have seen how to play with string and how to assign things to variable. In the last video, we saw that when you run this code, wherever you introduce a dot, this becomes a float. And whenever this becomes a float, wherever this gets interacted, wherever the word says interaction, so interaction of any float will convert the integer into float. And that's what we were trying to see here. And this is how I'm going to use comment. So when we say just lines, just pages, things are okay. But whenever we make the interaction happen between float and integer, it becomes an integer. That's what we are trying to understand, because we want to be more conservative. Now in other programming language, you would rather define the data type, but we are not doing that in Python, so that's a limitation. Okay, let's look at the next part. The next part is to find the variable type. Now we have been looking at 4 variable types till now. And we won't go into others in Python because Python does that for us. But it's integer, float, it's character, and it's boolean. For now, we are looking only at these 4 variable types. And whenever you want to find out which variable type you are, you have to write type, and in parentheses, you're going to write the name of the variable. So let's try to execute this command. Now I am expecting that you are also running these commands with me. So it becomes an integer because I have assigned it to an integer. Once I put integer in the quote, it becomes a quote. Once I do an integer, I am pressing Ctrl Z in Command Z in Mac, and I write 0.1. It becomes a float. And whenever I write this as true and make sure that T is capital, it becomes a boolean. So this makes it a boolean. And if you go to my course, you have to run these commands and make sure that it's working that way. Okay. The next part is how to break this code. We always think of how to break this code. So let's make T as small and see what's going to happen. It gave you an error that true is not defined, because the true boolean true, which is equal to true or false in terms of boolean expression, and boolean expression can only be true or false, is T capital. What happens if you write true? Again, true not defined. So make sure you use the right true, because if you don't, it's going to get angry at us. Right? You can also directly type something in type and find it out. And if you can write true here, it's going to give you boolean. So this is how you find the variable data type. Okay, now let's play with some of the system files. I'm using these system files because when we use them, we don't need to have any third-party files. But these system files are working on a Linux-based system, which I have which I've got from this Azure notebook. So I'm copying this code. And I'm saying that from system import Argv. Argv are some system arguments like what is where the data file is stored, etc., etc. And from command is used to import something. Import sys is the system library. So from system library we are importing Argv. Once we import Argv, we are putting 3 things on the left because Argv is comprised of 3 things. So to find out what is Argv, I'm going to write print Argv. Then I'm going to take off 3 stuff. Once I have 3, I'm going to display all of them. Let's see how this looks like. So Argv is here. So I would say this is Argv. So I would say that this is Argv. And the three variables are this. Now whenever we want to import something from any library, we are going to write import argv. But import argv, before we write it, it exists in the system library. So from system library, import argv. The idea that we want to get here is that how to import something, and more importantly, how to import something and catch the thing into three input. This is not the right time to talk about list, but the idea is that when you are importing something, you're going to get a list of item and you want to capture it right. We're going to go deeper into this, but I'll show you some errors. Now, if we import argv and we try to put it into four things, so it will say I cannot put four because it consists of three. If I put into two things, it says that I have three, so I have more values than you are trying to unpack. So we have to always go with third. Now, if you are using Python 2, this gives an error, and if you are using any other operating system, then this would give an error. So this is a very gentle. You should not worry about this code right now. I keep putting some of these stuff so that you can have things that you want to get in the future. You'll have a review of that. Let's copy the next code, which has some part commented, and see the use of this code. So we are importing this from argv, and you see too many values to unpack. So I'm going to write this and third, and this is never used if I don't want to use it. Now it says username is not defined. So this is username. So it says, hello, I am the user, and this is the script. So the name of the user in my computer is F, and the script is this. If you remember, F tells Python that in the curly brackets search for the variable. Whenever you have these kind of curly brackets or double curly brackets in Python Django framework or code, you would think that it wants to print this as a variable. So do you like me? And it asks, and I'm going to write something. So we are first time introducing input. Where do you live? What kind of computer you have? And we are trying to print it. So I'm trying to break down small stuff which we are going to see in the coming lecture, but I just want you to sensitize yourself with these code. So I'm importing this from argv. It has three stuff. The third argument is never used. Then I'm printing username and script. And once I get the username, I'm using the input command to display this prompt. And right now the prompt is blank, which is here on the left. If I make the prompt as this, then the prompt becomes 3. So when I ask where do you live, likes, lives, and then I use these likes and lives in my final print, which is spread across multiple lines using triple quotes. So in summary, we are using an import command. We are using the F and the curly brackets to print. We are using the input command. The input command asks the user to print something. A very simple input command would be x equal to input and whatever message you want to display. Can you give me value of x? Whatever you say, 12. Now that becomes the value of x. Print x here, it's 12. But remember that it's a string, it's not a number. So whatever we get from input is a string. So that's the input command. The next command would be to open a file and see what is inside the file and ask somebody to type a name of a file and try to print it. So that would be the next command, which we are going to do in the next video in the same path.